We're continuing with our special series on Benghazi entitled, What Difference Does It Make? Once again, Clare Lopez, former Central Intelligence Agency operations officer, currently with the Center for Security Policy, Vice President of Research and Analysis, and a member of the Benghazi Citizens Commission. Clare, what is the Benghazi Citizens Commission?
Well, the Benghazi Citizens Commission is a group organized by Roger Aronoff, who is the leader of AIM, Accuracy in Media, AIM.org. And we came together in 2013 because we didn't think that the Congress and all of the different congressional committees really were getting to the bottom of what happened in Benghazi. And we wanted accountability of the government and also of the media. Now, AIM is a kind of a media watchdog organization and a nonprofit. You can find it again, www.aim.org. And so Roger Aronoff drew together a group of former retired military, retired intelligence community folks like myself, some former special forces, retired officers, and others, to dig into really what happened in Benghazi. And we tried to encourage people to come to us as sources, and we promised them confidentiality, but we also promised them that we would get their story out. And indeed, over the last 2+ years now, 2.5 years that we've been in operation, that's indeed what happened. Sources came to us, some later agreed to go public, and some have not gone public.
All right, Clare, we have in our special series, we have addressed many of the failures of the Obama-Clinton administration regarding Benghazi. But what we'd like to do right now, just briefly, is give the folks a feel for the actual evening of the attack, September 11, 2012, right around East Coast time, 4 o'clock. I think it was 6 hours difference, 10 o'clock over there. It started a little earlier than that. And there was a movie, and this is, I think the administration is still hanging on to this. There was a goofy cornball. In fact, I believe we have some B-roll of the movie Innocence of Muslims. We'll roll a little bit of it. And then I want you to comment on the fabricated justification for this movie by the administration. And then we'll just briefly walk through what actually happened on that evening, that horrible evening, 4 years ago now.
Right. So as 2012 is unfolding, and as we said, the security situation deteriorating by the day, practically attacks occurring against Westerners, against our own ambassador's compound, and against some of the security folks at the annex as well. All of that is happening at a time when now Ambassador Christopher Stevens is back and forth to Benghazi, but not as often as the previous year, 2011. Now the lead in U.S. government foreign policy on Libya has shifted to the annex. And what's happening is that the annex officers, which is a CIA base of operations, they are gathering up some of these very dangerous weapons that have been looted out of Gaddafi's stockpiles, in particular those surface-to-air missiles. They are buying them back, collecting them up, putting them on ships, and those ships are sailing to Turkey for overland delivery of those weapons to Al-Qaeda and Muslim Brotherhood-led militias now in Syria fighting against the regime of Bashar al-Assad. This is 2012.
Wait a minute. You know, we're sending Gaddafi's weapons to fight with whom? Who got the weapons in Syria?
Jihadis, of course, jihadis. They are Muslim Brotherhood, they are Al-Qaeda, and later some of these same individuals and militias would coalesce into what has become known as ISIS, Islamic State in Iraq and al-Sham. Later, that term becomes shortened to simply Islamic State or the Caliphate. That's who the weapons were going to.
All right, so on that night, September 11, 2012, the movie we just showed, the little bit of footage, really a corny movie that is no one should take seriously. This movie was blamed for the attack on the compound that Ambassador Stevens was living in. Help us understand that whole situation with this movie.
Right. Well, the first thing that I want to lay out as sort of the lead up to this attack on the night of September 11/12 is how many warnings there were that went unheeded by the State Department, the Department of Defense, the intelligence community, the White House. First and foremost, there was explicit warning that came to the annex and was conveyed as well to the ambassador's compound about 10 days before the attack that something was brewing, an attack was imminent. Next, you had the fact that we are talking about the date of 9/11 itself, which all by itself ought to be enough reason to increase security at American diplomatic missions abroad. That's two. Number three, this horrific YouTube video, Innocence of Muslims, which, by the way, it's corny and it's horribly made. But in fact, what you're watching in this film are vignettes taken directly from the life of Muhammad. These are true events. I shouldn't say true events, but vignettes and stories from the biography of Muhammad, the Sirat. You know, terribly depicted, terribly acted, of course, but genuine stories directly from the biography of Muhammad. So let that be clear. The producer of that film, an Egyptian Copt who was living in the United States, had put this film up on YouTube in the middle of the year, about July 2012, but nobody watched it. I mean, practically nobody even saw the thing. Come up towards the 9/11 anniversary date, and he wants more people to see it because he wants people to understand what Islam is in anticipation of that momentous date. And so he starts looking to see who can publish, who can broadcast about this movie, and eventually winds up getting some of that film shown on an Egyptian TV talk show on September the 9th. September 9, parts of this little film show on Egyptian TV. Very popular show, many people saw it. Cairo Embassy realizes that this is going to be trouble. Now, up until that point, everybody in Cairo thought that the anniversary of 9/11 was going to be marked by demonstrations to urge the release of the so-called blind sheikh, Umar Abdurrahman, the blind sheikh, the cleric who had led the attack on, or had given the fatwa, the Islamic justification for the attack on our World Trade Center in 1993. To urge for his release, he's being held in a U.S. prison on a life sentence. That was what was expected. When the film comes out on Egyptian TV 2 days before 9/11, everybody in Cairo and therefore at the Department of State realizes this is going to take over the sentiments of Muslims on the 9/11 anniversary. Warnings start going out. There are going to be uprisings. There's going to be demonstrations in Cairo, at least. And so it was. On the date of 9/11, there were large demonstrations, not just in Cairo, but in many other places around the world. Ultimately, some 36 Muslim countries saw demonstrations, violent uprisings, and attacks against American embassies in those places. But no demonstrations took place in Libya. None. Zero about this film. Part of the reason for that might have been the poor coverage that Libya has in terms of satellite reception for TV or for internet. Whatever the reason, there were no demonstrations or protests about this film in Libya. The final warning then was about this film. Every country in North Africa should have been on hyper alert once Cairo embassy had realized that this was going to be a problem. But no, in Libya, nothing happened. There was no preparation. There was no enhanced security, nothing in preparation for the date or in view of the warnings that already had occurred. And I'll add one last warning that really should have tipped everyone off. And that is on September 10, the day before the attack, Ayman al-Zawahiri, the head of Al-Qaeda, put out a video on the jihadist websites that Al-Qaeda usually uses, and it urged Libyans to rise up and kill Americans. It went something like this: "Oh, sons of Libya, rise up and kill Americans," because his deputy, a Libyan by the name of Abu Yahya Libby, had been killed in a CIA drone strike earlier in the year 2012. That should have been the warning of, if none of the others had been noted, this should have been the warning. This probably was the green light to the jihadis, which undertook the attack then the next night, September 11, against our mission in Benghazi.
All right, thank you, Clare Lopez. We're going to pick up in our next segment. And as of right now, it's very clear, and we're 3 years removed from September 11, 2012, very clear that there was ample warnings to the American embassy in Tripoli, to the compound, to the annex, that there's all kinds of problems that are going to occur on 9/11, and the failure, the dereliction of duty that occurred by the State Department, by the CIA, by the administration, was there was a sidestep to blame the video for everything, when in fact the video in particular had nothing to do for the Libyan situation. We're going to pick up on some of that in our next segment. Thank you very much, Clare Lopez. Tom Trento reporting, Special Report Benghazi. What difference does it make? Stay tuned for the next segment.
إلى الحق سلطانه ودكوا معاقيل جند العدا